there, travelers, and welcome back to the end of time. Kingdom Hearts. A game series unlike any other. Honestly, that's not an exaggeration to say. There is nothing else quite like Kingdom Hearts. It's a juggernaut franchise that has come a very long way, and super impressively so, I might say. It's touched the hearts of millions with its themes of friendship, love, hope, redemption, and finding your way in life. Today, the series is a massive titan that spans almost a dozen games, with a single story arc encompassing nearly all of it. It's become a much more complex and non-linear narrative. But forget all of that for just a second. There is so much that can be said about Kingdom Hearts nowadays. People have untold passion for the series, and I'm one of them. But what was it that made the series so special in the first place? What was it that made everyone latch onto its cast of memorable characters and fantasy storytelling? Sure, the massive love for Disney and its characters went a long way, but I personally believe it all comes down to the very first game in the series, the game that set the tone for all future games to come. Kingdom Hearts 1 is a special game that will forever hold a piece of me. It's my second favorite game of all time. Despite its flaws, the somewhat clunky controls, dated design, and crude platforming, the game's magic and beauty shines through in a way that transcends all of its negatives. It's a game that came at a perfect time in my life, and I'm positive I'm not the only one who can say that. I can talk for hours about its unique atmosphere, surprisingly dark and moody aesthetic, and of course its miraculous soundtrack. And perhaps someday I will. But today, I want to talk about just one quality, one that I believe is what made the game what it was. A timeless and simple story. It's a common joke nowadays to make fun of Kingdom Hearts for its cheesy and overcomplicated storytelling, quote unquote. But believe it or not, the series is not as, well, dumb as you might think it is. The first game in the series in particular might seem like a simple tale of a boy who saves the world in typical JRPG fashion, but underlying it is what I believe a surprisingly deep and provocative theme, at least in my opinion. I'm definitely not the only person to have noticed the things I'm about to talk about, and other games have dabbled with these themes of course, but I wanted to at least put my spin on it and tell you why this game means so much to me. In my opinion, the first Kingdom Hearts game, and some of the series in general, is a game that's all about growing up. It's a game about, perhaps you could say, even puberty. It's a game about that moment in our lives when we step into a scary new doorway of new understandings, new responsibilities, and new fears. Many will say it's about more than that, and I absolutely agree, but this is the resonating theme that I think enabled this game to craft me into the person I am today. All of this is perfectly portrayed through the game's main characters, the naive and kind-hearted Sora, and the strong-willed and determined Riku. Each character undergoes a journey in this game, and to my mind, each represents a different side of growing up, or puberty. I personally resonated more with Sora, a boy who had to find his inner strength and come to love himself. I can absolutely see how others might have felt more in touch with Riku, someone who was more challenged by the hardships we faced and lost his way for a bit in his attempt to maintain his strength. In Kingdom Hearts, Sora, Riku, and their friend Kairi long to escape from the island they feel confined in. While it seems like a paradise to some, it prevents them from growing their wings, so to speak, and pushing forward in their dreams and aspirations. Like Ansem says, it's like a prison. They are, of course, swept from that place unexpectedly, and thrown into a whole new figurative world that they do not at first recognize or understand. They must find a way to seek out new power and understanding in their journey towards self-discovery and the pursuit of happiness. Destiny Islands, in my opinion, is a symbol of our childhood. It's a simpler, much more innocent and safer place to be. But it's not that it's literally our childhood, but rather that part of our childhood that we may lose. Our imagination, our wonder, and perhaps even our happiness. It's for this reason that our heroes eventually return there, as in a similar way to how we hope to regain our happiness after the trials and tribulations of life. In the beginning of our story, Riku and Sora long to venture outward, and the journey off Destiny Islands very much represents the act of growing from a child to an adult, the awkward teen years, so to speak. Each one looks at it in different ways. While Sora very much longs to see other worlds, he seems to have a naive sense of what's at stake and a lack of inner conviction in himself. Riku, on the other hand, is a super confident, perhaps even overconfident boy ready to take on the challenges that lie ahead. Enter the Heartless and their loss of their old understanding. It's here where Kingdom Hearts follows the basic script storytelling. Our characters have a lie that they strongly believe in the start of our story, and their entire perception of everything and their understanding is blown open and changed forever with an inciting event. Destiny Island's destruction is, of course, that event in the case of this story. I might be overthinking it, but to me the Heartless are very much a representation of depression and the dark despair we might soon discover in our teens. Being a teenager can be an incredibly difficult time, and I've always seen the way Sora and Riku's lives turn upside down as a symbol of that difficulty. The Heartless are a force that in some ways cannot be understood or reasoned with, but we know it's threatening. We know that they feed on our doubts and our weaknesses. They try to take away our soul and our humanity. All of this reminds me of my personal battle with depression during high school. The heart in Kingdom Hearts ironically represents a person's soul. It's everything that makes a person who they are. And by losing their hearts, a person loses who they are. Sora's journey of sealing all the keyholes and mitigating the hold over the world the Heartless has is a lot like a battle against the struggles of growing up, to my mind. It's like a battle against depression and anxiety. Sora and Riku handle the journey out of their childhood very differently. Sora starts as an innocent boy who seems to lack confidence in himself and his abilities. He hasn't yet found himself or what makes him who he is. To my mind, Kingdom Hearts 1 has always been an underdog story, and Sora, of course, is the underdog himself. Though he nearly succumbs to the hell that has been thrusted on his life, Sora makes a grandiose discovery that changes him forever. That true strength doesn't always have to rely from within, but rather the ones around you. And that it is those friends that can make you stronger. I find myself crying every time I watch this iconic scene because it resonated so much with my life.
And our hearts will be one. I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
My friends are the people who help me wade through life. I've had numerous occasions in which I found that their kindness and generosity have helped me survive and live to fight another day. And I'm someone who personally believes that our experiences with others greatly shapes us into the person we are today. Sora's arc is a positive one. He ends up on the other side a stronger and better person than he was. A timeless tale that makes for any great story. He's the equivalent of a boy who grows into an adult and discovers who they truly are. Riku's is very much different. Though at first he may believe he has his life under control, Riku's journey toward adulthood ends up defying his expectations and pulling the rug from under his feet. Riku, unlike Sora in the beginning of our story, relies solely on his own inner strength and determination. He's a strong, proud boy who believes he's up to the task. But as it turns out, it's his attempt at wading the darkness alone that ultimately reveals his weaknesses to himself. A person can certainly make it on their own, but for Riku, his eye becomes so fixated on the prize and his struggle to maintain his strength in the woman he cares for that he loses himself in the process. But perhaps like Sora, he too can change from this. Riku discovers that all of us have a side to ourselves that is weaker, but we can still strive above it. I've always seen his arc as one about a person who struggles with depression. Riku, of course, ultimately learns that while he cannot eliminate the darkness inside of him entirely, he can use the experiences it has taught him and the strength he's used to combat it to be stronger than ever. He finds a way to weaponize it, to not let it take away who he is, and to always fight for others so that they may never discover that same pain. Both characters grow up, and both grow in different ways into new and different people. And the harsh reality we must often face in maturing is that some people in our lives will take a different path than us, and we may grow distant from them. Where we once may enjoy innocent, simple friendships, Upon growing up, we may find that we have grown far apart enough that we are now separated by a wall between us. And would you look at what happens at the end of Kingdom Hearts? Sora and Riku are literally left with no choice but to continue on opposite sides of one another, separated by a door they cannot open between them. It may at times be subtle, but I promise it's there. Kingdom Hearts is a much deeper and symbolic story than we often give it credit for. I didn't even quite realize at the time why it spoke to me the way it did, and now I realize how relatable the journey Sora and Riku take, and how it can teach us to maintain strength even in our darkest uncertainties. But perhaps if we fight hard enough to keep our friends, we can indeed wade through the darkness and not let the trauma we face keep us apart. I won't say too much about Kingdom Hearts 2, that deserves its own video, but I personally always saw this as the completion of the story growing up. Sure, the characters in it don't grow quite as much, but it's more about that final stage of maturity, where we take everything we've learned through our journey and once again return to a happy and stable world with the people we love, wiser and stronger than ever. Sora and Riku ultimately take everything that sought to draw them apart and end up rising above it in order to emerge as adults who have been tempered, and they learn to no longer fear the simple life, one without constant adventure. It's a lot like growing up, wouldn't you agree? Anyway, I've just always kind of wanted to talk about that. What do you think? Am I wrong? Is Kingdom Hearts really about something much different? I think the beauty of the first game and a couple other games in the series is that it can be interpreted in many different ways. Let me know what you think. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to make other videos that detail Kingdom Hearts. I adore this series so much and would really love to give back to it. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day.